Welcome back to the Thrive on Plants podcast. In today's episode, we continue on our journey with Sarah Harper. This is going to be part two in our conversation. So if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to part one, where Sarah shares about her journey to pregnancy, I would highly encourage you to listen to that either before you listen to this episode or after. Today, we'll be talking about Sarah's journey through pregnancy, birth, and a very important postpartum period, and that's all through the lens of being plant-based. As in the last session, we will touch on some personal and sometimes challenging topics, and I just want to make sure that we understand that navigating the physical and emotional changes that occur during and after pregnancy is very personal. So we appreciate, and I appreciate in particular, Sarah's openness in sharing her story, offering insights and guidance. And I know you're going to learn a lot from understanding Sarah's perspective on how she navigated her pregnancy and the postpartum period. Sarah, welcome back to Thrive on Plants.
Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to chat about this today.
So, Sarah, last time we left off and you left everyone at the edge of the cliff where you've just gone through this fertility journey and now you're pregnant. So, would you mind sharing how did it feel when you found out that you were pregnant?
Yes. So I think like anytime you go through a long fertility journey, and I'm sure many people would feel this as well, that it's you're in two minds. You're like, this is the best thing in the world, but it's also this is the scariest thing in the world now because you've got this whole next level of things that you need to go through. So different hoops that you need to jump through. For me, it was taking it one step at a time, was the biggest thing that I needed to do. So it was like, this is so exciting and yes, amazing. But also one step at a time. So I'd celebrate each milestone. It'd be like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, second trimester, celebrating each milestone that you get to, that the baby's growing healthier and stronger. That was really helpful for me. But it was an amazing moment to realize, hey, we're pregnant. Woohoo.
And I'm certain that the joy for both your husband, your family, and everyone else must have been amazing.
Yes, absolutely. We held off from often people will tell people at the 12-week mark, but we were I was like, oh, I'm still not ready. No, 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 no. So I held off to when I felt like super comfortable to do it. But then when people were brought in, yes, very excited.
And what was your nutrition like during this time? We know you're vegan and you shared a lot about your pre-pregnancy nutrition. Did anything change once you found out that you're pregnant, or were you getting any guidance from your OB or friends or family about what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat? You know, everything that happens once people find out you're pregnant, you get probably more information than you care to.
So true. So true. And I think being a vegan, you maybe get even more. People seem to be even more worried. But yes. I think in regards to shifting my nutrition, because I had done a lot of work previous to getting pregnant, I was already consuming, a lot of the things I wanted to, making sure that I was hitting, the nutrients, choline, B12, iron, making sure I'm getting them in, looking through, and making sure I'm adding them into my diet each day. But when I got to first trimester and I wasn't feeling too well, then it felt a little tricky for me to kind of go, okay, I know what I have to eat, but my body doesn't want to eat that right now. And that was a little tricky for me. But knowing that I had the supplements that were backing up and making sure that I was getting the nutrients that I wanted to made me feel a little bit better about eating the 2-minute noodles and the plain bread that I wanted to eat.
So you suffered from morning sickness.
Yeah, every day sickness. I
Oh,
wouldn't, it wasn't just
every,
the morning.
oh no.
Yeah, but for the first trimester, I feel like once the second trimester really hit, that was when I was like, oh, I feel much more myself. The honeymoon period, they call it, or where you're like, hey, am I really even pregnant? Like, I'm feeling really great. I can move my body and I'm eating fruits and vegetables again. And yeah, the second trimester was really where I was able to hone in a little bit more, eat more of the fruits, the veggies, the colors, the protein, which in the first trimester was very much not there.
Do you have so during that first trimester when you were having the everyday sickness, um, were there any natural supplements, ginger, teas that helped you get through that successfully and make sure that you were getting enough energy for you and the baby?
Yeah, good question. So I would I could stomach some smoothies as well sometimes. So that was very, very helpful because a smoothie is a beautiful thing where you can throw things in, just going to get it down. And that was helpful for me to get in some greens because I noticed that my energy was dipping, not only because you're in the first trimester, but when you're not nourishing your body as you're used to, then you kind of feel a little bit, lack of energy as well. So definitely smoothies, and I was throwing things in. In regards to sickness, ginger, it wasn't something that really helped me per se, but I have had a lot of friends that ginger has worked for them. So I know later on, past the first trimester, was when I got heartburn, and that the heartburn wasn't in the first trimester, but second trimester, third trimester heartburn was there. But I was having the little quickies. It was the only thing that seemed to work for me. They're like these little gummies. They're vegan, which is great. They taste like mint, and you just keep having them.
Okay.
Like a calcium something is in them.
Oh,
So yeah.
almost like Tums or the
I
calcium
think so.
carbonate.
Yeah, like an
Okay.
antacid.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. I wanted I was very stubborn at first, and I was like, I don't want them. I don't want to have this. I want to try and have, the ginger and anything else that might help, but nothing was working. So then when I found something that actually worked, it was this kind of reflective, that's okay. You're allowed to have this. This gets you through the day. So, that's shout out to everyone that kind of maybe goes through that little bit of resistance internally where they're like, I don't want to have this, but then you have it and you feel much better. So
That is a little of letting go the things that you need to let go.
that's right. Exactly.
But it sounds like I hear heartburn came up in second and third trimester, but it sounds like your nutrition got back to normal second trimester.
Yeah, yes. So before pre-pregnancy, I was pretty much eating the same thing. So
Mhm.
I'm very much a one bowl wonder kind of person, whereas I like to throw things in. It's a salad, it's a veg, it's protein, it's in a bowl. I'm eating it with a spoon. And I was able to do that again in the second and third trimester, whereas the first trimester that was not happening. So that was very helpful.
And were your supplements the same during the course of your pregnancy, or did those change too?
So I kept them the same. So I have a Tresso's Natal, which can be used pre-conception, when you're pregnant, and then also postpartum if you're breastfeeding. Helpful as well to have that in. Great supplement, hits on all of the essential nutrients that we need to get in. And then I was also taking an omega as well, just to make sure when there were those days that I wasn't wanting or feeling like eating the things to get in the nutrient, flax seeds and etc. And I was like, oh, that would be really helpful.
Just to be sure.
That's right. Exactly.
And I know that you don't need to track during this time, but were you comfortable that you were getting both your macros and your micros that you needed with your nutrition and with your supplement plan?
I did. I felt super comfortable that I was able to get it in. I same like we were talking before about letting go of the having that antacid, having that quick eat. It was the same deal in the first trimester where I had to just let it go and go like, no, right now, this is what your body needs. You've got this supplement to help you. Eat the toast, eat the 2-minute noodle, whatever that was, that would get me through. But then when I got to the second trimester and I was like, okay, I can eat my fruits and I can eat my veg and I've got getting in my protein again. And I felt, yes, like I was hitting all of the things and I felt energetic again. So all was good.
And anyone who's either watched your prior episode or watching you now can see that you are an epitome of fitness. How did and we didn't talk about this much in the preconception period, but what did your movement look like as now you're pregnant? Are you more concerned about lifting, yoga, doing all the things you love to do? What did you do for training during your pregnancy?
Yes, it's such a good question. So I trained all throughout my pregnancy, which I'm very, very grateful for, right up until 41 weeks
Good for
and
you.
41 and 3. So right up until, which is, I was very grateful to be able to do that. Um, Early on, I was very, because of everything I'd gone through, I was very cautious that I didn't want to overexert, push my body, so I did make some shifts very early on. And then once I reached the second trimester, I was able to go up with my intensity just a little more, not to full capacity, because I do some crazy silly, handstands and twists and all that kind of stuff, which I say silly, but when you're pregnant, maybe not best, maybe. Um, but yeah, so I definitely shifted it when I got to the second trimester. But in first trimester, I was definitely focusing on lifting lighter weights. I was focusing on, things that weren't so high intensity,
Yeah.
just focusing on breathing, calming, allowing my body just to do its thing. I was definitely still doing yoga throughout as well, but in early first trimester rather, I would be doing more longer holds, yin style breathing practices, as opposed to in the second trimester moving a little bit more with that as well. So it definitely shifted with each trimester.
And so with the yoga, and we didn't talk much about mindset yet, I know you did a lot of mindset work while you were in the preconception period. Did that same focus on, doing your daily work with Joe Dispenza, doing your reflections, did that carry on through your pregnancy?
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned before about the hoops, it was very much like, okay, get to the next hoop. How
Mhm.
can we get to the next hoop? What's this going to look like? Breathe, don't look too far, just, and coming back to all of the things that I'd done previously with that Joe Dispenza work, the meditation, the reflection, the internal gratitude each day, that helped me to be able to get to that next step without, getting tizzle-tazzled up in my own head.
Tizzle tuzzle. I like that one. But it can be hard to get out of your own head because I'm sure that and maybe I'm just projecting that it's easy to catastrophize to this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, as opposed to let me enjoy where I am today and we'll deal with tomorrow when tomorrow comes.
Exactly, exactly. And that's true to so many things in life. We can often get in that little catastrophe bubble, and then when we actually zoom out and we go, everything's fine right now, just breathe and enjoy the moment. Yeah, that's so true.
Now, during our vegan superhero retreats, you and some of the other coaches have led pelvic floor exercises. And one of the things we always talked about was that we need to educate women about their pelvic floor before they're pregnant, or at least during their pregnancy. Did you incorporate pelvic floor exercises as part of your regimen leading up to your delivery?
Yes, yeah, I did. And even upped it even more. So I'm very much about pelvic health, making sure that you're doing your Kegels, making sure that you're, aware of how and what that even feels like. I'm a, Pilates teacher as well, so that's, very important to me always. But during pregnancy and preconception, I would do it when I was in my car, I would do it when I was sitting at my desk, like just increasing and thinking about it more often because I knew what was about to happen. This baby was inside me and had to come out. So that was just motivation to do even more.
And Sarah, just so we're sure for people listening, what is the pelvic floor? We don't talk about it enough, number one. And you kind of assume that women and men know what it is because it's important in women and men. But maybe just a 5-minute tutorial on what is the pelvic floor. And then when you talk about doing Kegels and making sure that you're focusing on tightening those muscles, just a quick a brief explanation.
Great question. So pelvic floor is the hammock at the base of the body, basically from the anus all the way up to your pelvic bone, basically. And when we're talking about that activation of the pelvic floor, we often talk about it squeezing in and up. but gently. So I've had before, something that I've used is pulling a tissue out of a tissue box, where it's like a gentle pulling in and up. So often when we tell people, or I tell people, hey, engage your pelvic floor, our brain goes to, all right, engage your abs, and you squeeze through your midsection. So bringing your ribs together and you're like, oh, like as if you're going to be punched in the stomach. But it's a different feeling. We want it more so that in and up, like you're trying to avoid going to the bathroom,
Mhm.
in and up as opposed to back and through. And that can be helpful, especially if you're kind of going, where is this pelvic floor? How do I
Exactly.
squeeze? Like it feels really strange, but that in and up at the base hammock, drawing in and up, can be very, very helpful.
And why is that? Were you having any urinary incontinence during your pregnancy, or was this all preventive? So strengthening your pelvic floor, knowing, as you said, number one, you've got this beautiful little baby sitting on your pelvic floor. And two, the baby was going to come through your pelvic floor. And then you want a healthy pelvic floor postpartum.
Yes. So yeah, that was definitely front and center in my mind, because I, in a perfect world, I wanted a vaginal birth, so I knew, hey, baby had to exit
Mhm.
through and down. So in regards to with the pelvic floor exercises, yes, I ramped them up. Sorry, what did you say? I lost my train of thought. You said,
Um,
oh, I had a really good point too. You said,
why what was were you thinking about them as a preventive measure, as a
that's it.
strengthening? Yeah,
Thank you. Sorry, they're gonna have to do a lot of editing. Sorry, guys.
that's why I apologize.
My goodness. Yes. So I did utilize pelvic floor as a preventative, and it wasn't really until the third trimester where I was actually noticing that I was having that little bit of incontinence, just a
Mhm.
little. And I was like, oh, hello. But this was when the baby was, almost ready to come out, and when I was jumping or anything like that. So I was very, very lucky because I had done the work that it didn't get to that stage where it was beyond. I was able to kind of go, okay, cool, this is happening because there's a baby pushing up against. But then once he was out, yes, the recovery journey was, it was still a little raw, and I still had a little bit of it was less incontinence but more, like that raw kind of feeling. But now 7 months on, I'm still noticing there are still changes. So even though you do the work,
Mhm.
there's still changes. Like I did 600 jumping jacks sillily yesterday or the day before, for a challenge. But I was like, yeah, I can't do that when I've got a full bladder.
No.
And that's a new thing. Yes.
I was going to say, did you go to the restroom first?
I was like doing it, and I was like, oh, I need to go. And I was like, I promised Alison that I was going to get 250.
Uh-huh.
And then I was like, nah, I will wait. I will wait. And then I was like, no, I can't. So that's why I was having to do 600, because I had to go back down and come back up. Oh man, silly.
It's the little things that count.
That's right.
So, cardio, pelvic floor exercises, strength training, yoga, stretching, breath work. You did it all.
I did it all, yes. And I'm very grateful that I did. And I'm very grateful that I was able to. I always have that conversation as well, just to be like, do what you can, because there'll be some days you might wake up and be like, no, not today. I just need to breathe and reset and just take a moment, because you're doing so much already. We're growing a baby. But on those days where you can move and you can find what you're able to do, I found that I felt so much better. So some days it would be breath work and yoga and movement and going to the gym, whereas some days it would just be like, okay, I'm just breathing and I'm sitting. And that was perfect.
And that's a great segue into mindset, because for someone as active as you are, so um, a couple of questions would love to have your feedback on. One, learning how to give yourself grace during this time. If you're, you probably trained 5, 6 days a week prior to your pregnancy. So being able to sit back and say, it's okay. Again, you are growing another human inside of you, but not punishing yourself when you're not getting to the gym 6 out of 7 days or 5 out of 7 days or whatever your normal goal would be. And then the other question is, during this time, your body's also changing a lot. And how did you navigate both your physical change, the scale change, and just your own perception of how you looked and felt as your pregnancy progressed.
Ah, cool. So first part of the question, how did I feel in regards to with not moving as much as I'd been used to moving? Yes, it was a change, but I would always be saying to myself, we're swapping it, don't stop it. And I always talk about that, how can I still get movement in to help my body in this moment because I'm growing a baby, as opposed to working on other specific goals that I had before I was pregnant. And it's more, hey, I can still get movement in, but it's just going to look a little different. And I'm just not going to be lifting as heavy, or I'm not going to be running, or whatever that looks like, because my goal in this moment is different. So looking at it as like a phase of my life, which it was, pregnancy is a phase, I will not be pregnant forever, but in this phase, what is the most important thing for me to do for myself, for my baby, and for future Sarah, who wants to move like she did before she was pregnant? You don't want to hurt yourself when you're pregnant by doing things because all your muscles are pulled tighter, and so I had to keep that in the back of my mind as well. I was lucky in the sense that I did feel well second and third trimester, so I was working out a lot. It looked different, but I was still able to move my body, and that's because of years and years of work and moving my body, and it's just deeply ingrained in me and who I am. I'm an active person, but yeah, I was very lucky in that aspect as well. But just having the grace with myself to go, this looks different, it is a different phase, this is okay. And then in regards to seeing the weight on the scale move, and it did move, it moved a lot. 33 pounds was what I put on. And that's okay. Like, saying it out loud, you go, wow, that's a lot. And I was the heaviest that I'd ever been. But then you bring it back and you go, but why? Because I've got a baby,
Little
and
baby.
that's exactly. So, we can always get fixated on numbers, and we can always get fixated. But if I was more jumping on and being like, my body is thriving, I feel amazing. Like, hey, my body needs to put on this weight to carry this baby. This is what this looks like, and the weight on the scale is going to be different for everyone. But that was my journey. And then, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Coming with that, like with the number on the scale and noticing the changes in my body with how I could move as well. So, obviously protruding with my belly, but then obviously in different areas I couldn't twist and bend and move. And that for me was more of a more jarring than the weight on the scale, because I always like to look at things as, how do I move, how do I feel, rather than the number on the scale. So I think that to me was like, oh, touching my toes and all of that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, that was a little different to me, but fun to work through, and especially now coming back with baby in hands, and like I've got my body back, it's different as well.
It's funny because I followed Tia Claire Toomey during her pregnancy. She's I don't know if you follow her at all.
Yes.
That was amazing to watch.
Oh, honestly.
Yeah. Continuing to do CrossFit throughout her pregnancy just made me realize that we can do hard things. Yeah.
And that just brings up a point as well, because I would have many people, and this is a beautiful thing, but they would come up to me in the gym and be like, well done, look at you moving, when I was really pregnant. Oh, awesome. And it just led me to think that it's just unfortunately not the norm. And that makes me a little sad that it's not the norm, because, yes, our bodies are amazing. We're built to bring beautiful babies into this world, but we also don't have to just sit there and be sedentary and not move and not do anything. We're able to move our bodies as well as growing a human. So yeah, that definitely brought that to light for me as well.
For centuries, women moved and did other things while they were carrying children. So
Right.
I don't know why in this modern world we would think anything differently, but
Yeah. So true.
and so, Sarah, you mentioned that you had nausea during first trimester, which seemed to get better, heartburn during second and third trimester. Any other wonderful things happened to you during your pregnancy that other women may encounter? And were there any plant-based tips or tricks that you learned during this time?
Good question. I think biggest things were once he was born, if you want me to delve into that now, or do we want to just do pregnancy first? Or how are you feeling with that?
No, we can freewheel. Yeah.
let's delve into both. Okay. So I think for me, so yes, it was heartburn. Yes, it was that nausea in the first trimester, and then heartburn kind of throughout, like second and third. And then the biggest thing for me from those two was after he was here, was the recovery in that aspect. So yes, I think the biggest things for me, so we're talking the heartburn second and third trimester, the nausea in the first trimester, and then really the next big thing for me was after he was born. I had some trauma in my anus. So that region was really what took the longest kind of recovery for me. And I think, again, that was a bit of a shock because I didn't expect it as much. Like I knew, there was going to be some trauma of a baby coming through. But that to me was, that was a big one. So yes, in regards to what did I utilize and what did I do to help me overcome these issues that I had rectally, but also just downstairs in general. So I was looking into increasing fiber in my diet. So yes, with a plant-based diet, we generally have quite a lot of fiber anyways, and specifically the diet that I follow as well. There's lots of fruits, lots of veggies, lots of whole grains, but it's still just, my body was like, nope. The trauma was kind of outweighing that. So I did increase my fiber. I was taking a supplement called Benny Fiber.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and just increases your stool volume, and as well as looking into laxatives, which did help, but then we went to the opposite end where it's like, okay, cool, well now we have a hemorrhoid. So it was like there were just this dance between the two, which was fun, and I didn't want to be a part of the dance anymore, but I was still there. I was still there. But yes, increasing my fiber definitely did help, and I think just continuing to move my body and allow water intake, movement, allowing my body the rest and recovery that it needed. Eventually, with time, it did pass, but it was a challenging time.
It was months. Yeah.
Yes.
And probably still not the same as pre-pregnancy. No.
Correct. Yes. And there's a lot of that where it's, pre-pregnancy, this is what this looked like, this is what this felt like. And now post-pregnancy, it's so different. And, that's just the way that it is now. And, you celebrate all the beautiful things, that it has brought through, pregnancy, what has happened. However, then you can also kind of have this grieving or mourning of what was before, but also celebrate at the same time. And I think it's a bit of that.
Sarah, thanks for sharing all that. And it sounds like you had a healthy vaginal birth. Congratulations. And I'd love to talk a little bit about the fourth trimester. So I don't know what it's like in Australia, but I'm assuming you had a brief stay in the hospital. And can you talk a little bit about your postpartum journey?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I know it's a little different, country to country, even state to state, really. But in Australia, the guideline is, stay at home as long as you can, and try and come in when the baby's coming,
About to pop.
about to come. That's the goal. But yes, for me, it looked a little different, just in the sense that we would, 40 weeks, 41 weeks, and baby just still was kind of just like, nah, I'm all good, comfortable, happy.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, comfortable and cozy, which is, great and beautiful, but I was, getting a little bit uncomfortable. They don't like to take you past 42 weeks. And also with an IVF pregnancy too, then they start to kind of wave the banner to be like, hey, we really want to get this baby out. So I was actually induced at 41 and 3. And yeah, again, you ride the waves. You ride the waves of whatever's thrown your way. During pregnancy, conception, post, you just kind of go, all right, whatever needs to happen to get this healthy baby earthside, this needs to happen. So, yep, induced, went in, healthy vaginal birth. I won't bore you with the big birth story, but yes, healthy vaginal birth. So lucky. And yes, we did stay in the hospital for a couple of days. And the hospital does have, lactation consultants / nurses and beautiful midwives that come in and help.
Oh, good.
which was very helpful for me because yes, I'm breastfeeding, still am, but it's a learned skill for your baby, for you, where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. My boobs have never done anything like this before. The baby's obviously very fresh, doesn't know what they're doing. That was very, very, very helpful. I did also do work before the baby was here. So when I was pregnant, I did a lot of research and jumped into courses about breastfeeding as well, which I cannot recommend enough, for just in general, just educating yourself before your baby comes, because once your baby's there, it's stressful, you're tired, you want your baby to feed. If you don't know what the heck you're doing, in any way, shape, or form, then that's just adds an additional stress. So it helped me to have that pre-knowledge coming in, and that was really helpful, as well as the people in the beautiful nurses and staff in the hospital too.
No, lactation consultants are beautiful people.
Yes, agreed.
And did they chat with you? So I'd love to hear a little bit about your postpartum nutrition because now you're a mom, um, you're breastfeeding, which actually increases your caloric needs. But at the same time, I know I hear moms saying, well, I want to lose some of the baby weight at the same time. So, did you receive any advice or did the coursework that you did help you navigate this? I don't want to say, how do you balance having enough adequate calories and nutrients to continue to produce milk healthfully, while at the same time looking at how do I start to reduce some of the baby weight and get back to my whatever my normal state is now post pregnancy?
Yeah. I always like to go on a feeling. And anyone that's done a body recomposition in the past, like maybe they've experienced what a deficit feels like, where we're eating less to lose body fat, or maybe experience what a maintenance feels like, where you want to stay the same, or a build, a surplus, where you want to build muscle, or whatever your goals are. It's helpful for me to know, hey, whereabouts do I need to be in this aspect to thrive, right? So I wanted to make sure that I was sitting in or around that maintenance and then some. So
Mm-hmm.
meaning I felt completely satiated. I felt that I had enough energy and then maybe a little extra because I knew my baby was going to be taking some as well. So that was the biggest crux of mine, was a feeling. So I wasn't tracking specifically. I don't track, and I haven't tracked for many years. It's just not, yeah, it's just not something that that's it within my goals or anything that I feel like I need to do at the moment. There's lots of reasons to track, and it's helpful to know how to track and why it's helpful. But right now, it's just not something that I'm doing. And in pregnancy, postpartum, I wasn't doing it either. So yeah, more that feeling, knowing, hey, I feel satiated. And especially when I was going back to training and starting to up my intensity, I was becoming even more aware of it, going, all right, we don't want to get to the point where you're absolutely starving and hungry, because you still need to produce this milk for your baby, even though you're working out a lot and moving your body a lot. So yeah, it was more that feeling that I would bring it back to all the time.
Wonderful. And how about hydration? Because that's for anyone who wants a good resource. One of the books that Sarah and I were talking about before our call was Brenda Davis's and Reshma Shah's book called Nourish. And they have a great chapter in there that talks about both your caloric needs postpartum, but they also focus on the fact that you need to hydrate.
Yes. And especially when you're breastfeeding, like you honestly, I've spoken to people as well that have experienced this. When your baby is breastfeeding, it's almost you can feel the thirst. Like it's like you start to feel thirsty. It's very, very interesting. So yes, I've always drunk a lot of water. Like I say, always, it's been very important to me. Something that I always strive to do, and I've always got my water bottle nice and close. But even more so now, because it's like I am his food source, but also his water as well. I'm here, his hydration. So he's driving me to drink even more. But you get so thirsty that it's always on your brain anyways. But yeah, always having the water bottle near, making sure that when I'm feeding that I would drink afterwards. Having water through the night is helpful too, because sometimes you just wake up and you're like, oh, I'm so thirsty. So just making sure that you have water full, ready to go as you need it. So it's very helpful.
And what about your supplements? Did your supplement regimen change postpartum or did you add things?
Yeah, great question. I kept it the same. And I think that that's been one of the easiest things too. I've spoken to people in the past where it gets very overwhelming. It is, and it can be, because you go, I need to make sure that I have this nutrient in for my baby and for me. But for me, making sure that I was eating the rainbow, aware of the nutrients that I needed to be aware of, plus also having that, that insurance policy of that natal, the omega-3, preconception, pregnancy, and postnatal. That was just really helpful for me. So, I'm any brand that hits it all, that works for you and that's accessible for you is great. But having that was very helpful for me, just to know that I didn't have to be 100% perfect, because in each of those aspects, preconception, pregnancy, and then once the baby's here, sometimes it can be hard and you're strapped for time. So it's nice to have that little insurance policy.
In Stratford time, you mentioned Stratford time and overwhelm. And if you mind, can we talk a little bit about that postpartum mental health?
Yes.
Because I can imagine it could be stressful. I mean, not only do you have a little person whose life is now depending on you, but many women do go through a lot of hormonal shifts postpartum, which can affect their mood, their mental health. How did you navigate both the overwhelm, the changing to now you have a whole new routine, a whole new individual whose life is in your hands, really, and just your mental health and the support system that you needed after you brought your baby home?
It's such a big topic. And I think it has to be an ever-changing, ever-evolving thing, because there's going to be, as your baby grows, there's new needs that they have. There's new things that you have to go, okay, well, I need to adapt to this because their schedule is changing. But yeah, it's stressful, because you have to be even more prepared and even more, organized with everything that's going on, because what you could do before, is completely railroaded in the best way by a little human, that their needs now trump everything else. So things that you might want to get done in your day might take you twice as long or 3 times as long, because you've got this little human that, when they need something, they want it, and they want it yesterday. Kind of thing. So yeah, definitely lots and lots of planning, utilizing time blocking, making sure that I took things one step at a time. So, I made sure that when I was coming back to work, that I allowed myself enough time so that I would be able to come back, and especially with training as well, like I took it week to week. I wasn't like, okay, Sarah, by the time you're 2 months postpartum, I want you to be here. By the time you're 3 months, it was not like that. It was more, I would wake up, how am I feeling? Give myself a pulse check, and just keep moving intuitively as I went along with my healing process. And then giving myself grace too when it didn't look perfect, because you can have a plan for the day or for the week, and then baby can get sick, or whatever. Things are going to happen. So always having that in the back of your mind, going, I'm going to do my best. My best is going to look a little different each day, and I think that was very helpful for me.
And that, whether you're dealing with a new baby or not, that's helpful for everyone. I'm going to do my really.
Do the best.
Did you how did you adopt any new habits to manage stress? Or again, was it that you had, because of the challenges you went through preconception, you had such a strong foundation and you were so grounded in how to navigate your emotions and manage the stress, that you just continued doing those same practices?
Yes. So a little bit of that and a little bit of had to shift, because previously, before he was here, I had so much time to be able to, just lay on the ground and, focus on these beautiful gratitudes, etc. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's not that time doesn't exist for me now, because he's awake and he's, energy. And I love that. But then when he goes to sleep, then you just have a moment where you go, okay, well, I'm going to make dinner, and then I'm going to sort everything out to start for the next day. So my time has definitely changed and adapted, but I still do practice gratitude, meditation, reflection, but it just looks a little different. So time wise, maybe it's when I'm in my car, or maybe it's 5 minutes before I'm going to bed, or instead of that whole hour, it's minimized, but that's okay. It's what I have. Or maybe just before I'm heading into gym, I do this often. Because if I'm going to gym for myself, he's looked after, either by his dad or he's in the creche, then if this is me time, so maybe before I actually work out and go in, and I'm just taking a moment and I'm breathing and I'm thinking about gratitude and I'm reflecting. So it's still front of mind, it's still super important, but it's just dribbled in amidst my day, no matter what the day looks like. It's going to be a little different.
Sarah, you've learned a lot over the past several years, and you learned a lot over the past few months. Do you have what are Sarah's tips for managing life as a new mom, especially a new mom who is plant-based?
Yeah, such a good question. I think give yourself patience, give yourself grace, know that it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. With every aspect, like educate yourself on, in a perfect world, for like nutrients, for movements, for birth, for breastfeeding. Really educate yourself on what you want, and so that you can really go forth with education and knowledge and the resources, but then also know that it might not work out like that. And, there might be things that's still a little clunky once it actually happens, and once birth is here, and once the baby's coming, and once the baby's here. So yeah, I think that that's one of the biggest things. And prevention, like early on, so especially with pelvic floor mindset, if you can focus on that as much as you can before baby comes, that's going to help you once they're here as well, specifically for all the changes in your body necessary, because it's going to happen. But if you've got the mindset work there, then that's going to help you to navigate that moving forward.
And do you have any tips for managing the baby weight?
Yeah, good question. Tips for managing baby weight. I think focus on, if you can, try to avoid focusing so much on the scale and on the number, and focus on how your body's feeling, what your body's doing, and the energy that you have. Focusing on those as opposed to looking and scrutinizing that scale can be so helpful, because if we're looking at that, the scale's going to be up, down, sideways, backwards, forwards, and you're going to be sitting there like, why? But just move your body, nourish your body, and you will start to come back to what your new normal looks like. You might not look exactly the same, because you've gone through this amazing big life change, and you've brought a baby into this world, and having grace with that, so important. But yeah, take your mind off the scale as much as you can. Focus on energy, focus on how you move your body, focus on how you're feeling, and that's going to be that's my biggest advice.
Have you had any changes to your sleep?
Sorry,
I had to ask.
Sorry, what is sleep? Yes, so I've definitely had some changes to my sleep. We were very, very fortunate that when he first was born, for the first really 2 months of his life, he slept through the night, which was crazy. Oh. We're talking 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Wild. Awesome. Like, I was like, wow, this is crazy. But then we had a bit of a shift, a regression as they call it. And from now he wakes up multiple times through the night, but he's the ways that we navigate that moving forward is lots of communication. Lots of communication. Me and Aaron, my husband, communication, knowing what the next person has on the next day, so that we can help each other to move forward, can be very, very helpful. But I think there's acknowledging that when you have a baby, there probably is going to be changes in sleep helped me, because I didn't come in to having a baby going, I'm going to be well rested, I'm going to sleep all through the night. Like, I was aware that this baby is going to change that, and that helped me so much, because I was like, he's a baby, he needs me through the night. So
I don't know if you wear a smart device at all, but it'd be interesting to see what this looks like.
Yeah, I do not actually, but it would be so interesting. It's just a whole different level of tired. You think before pre-baby, oh, I got 7 hours sleep, I'm tired. But like now it's like, I got what, like 1 hour, and then I was woken up for 45 minutes, and then maybe two, and then yeah, and that was my sleep. Like it's just a whole different world.
Um, I want to respect your time, but two more topics and then I will let you go, I promise.
Oh no.
Some women, so one topic that comes up a lot, and I'm thinking about the different P's. We think of periods, pregnancy, perimenopause, postmenopause, but something that comes up a lot in menopause mastery is shedding and hair loss. Did you have any postpartum hair changes, nail changes? And if so, how are you navigating that?
Yeah, good question. I didn't really, which I'm very, very, very lucky for. Yeah, not, I know that I've spoken to some women that have clumps that come out, and that I can only imagine that that would be, that would be scary and a lot in the moment. But yeah, no, I luckily I was very, very grateful that I didn't have kind of hair loss or nail changes or anything like that for me.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And the final question is, toxin free living is one of the pillars of our plant powered blueprint. And I know when you're thinking about bringing another human being into your life, you're starting to think about what are all the things that we're exposed to today that I need to protect this baby from. Did you intentionally take any steps to reduce toxin exposure? I know we talked a little bit even about preconception, thinking, how do I reduce my exposure to anything that could be impacting my ability to get pregnant? But is that heightened awareness still persisted now that you have a healthy baby?
Yes, I think it's definitely something like when you're bringing this little baby into the world and you think they're so untouched, and then you bring them into this world and there's just so many things. And
Yes.
you definitely think about it. And you can go down a little rabbit hole with it as well, because you go, well, how can I minimize that and this is already just in the air, and air fresheners and everything. So yes and no, because you can drive yourself a little wacky with it when you really deep dive into it. But yes, in the sense that I wanted to minimize for things that were on him directly. So, when I'm looking at his his washing, his to what yes, for him directly. So when I'm talking about his soap,
Yep.
his hair products for his tiny little bits of hair, washing powders, all of that kind of stuff. I wanted to take it back to basics as much as I could, just for his beautiful, sensitive skin, and just to, reduce that for as long as I can. And with food as well. So he's only really just started eating foods, but definitely wanting to keep it as whole food as I can.
Mhm.
And, when we're putting things into the fridge, metal containers as opposed to plastic where I can as well. Progress over perfection, always. But
Yes.
that's little steps forward with that for sure.
I mean, everything you've been saying has been the same. There is no perfection.
Yeah.
And you could drive yourself, especially with the toxins, you could drive yourself crazy thinking, I have to be a perfect mom. Uh, so, no matter where you are in whatever life journey, there is no perfection.
True.
And
Exactly.
it's not good for your mental health to try and get there. Sarah, I've learned a lot about you these past two episodes, and I really appreciate it. I knew you were a strong woman. I now know that you're even stronger than I ever thought you were. And thank you so much for sharing all of this with me and with the community.
Thank you so much. Thanks for allowing me the space to share my story. Thank you. And hopefully I can help others.
Do you have any last tips, tricks, thoughts, words of encouragement to anyone who's listening or watching and is either about to give birth to a little human or is even postpartum and just trying to think, how do I do this as a plant based mom and do this successfully?
Yeah, yes. I think exactly as you mentioned before, like progress over perfection, know that perfection doesn't exist, and also know that your plans can be thrown out the window in an instant, and that's okay. I think, planning is necessary, especially when you've got, a little human and you've got other things that you want to get done, specifically, gym or movement or work or whatever that is that's thrown your way. Planning is necessary, but also knowing that sometimes that plan's not going to go to plan. Sometimes that's not going to work. And same for pregnancy and birth for that as well. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Plan B.
That's right. NCND.
Well, Sarah, thank you. This has been wonderful. And I look forward to maybe one day I'll have you both back on and we can talk a little bit more about your strategies for raising a plant-based baby.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And we want to thank you for joining us for another episode of the Thrive on Plants podcast. We hope today's discussion with Sarah has enriched your understanding of pregnancy and postpartum and maybe given you some new perspectives on navigating motherhood as a plant-based mom. If you want more resources, I would encourage you to join us in our community. You can go to thriveonplantslife.com and there you'll be able to connect with moms like Sarah, moms from all around the world who can probably give you a lot of advice, whether you're in the early stages of thinking about having a baby to anywhere postpartum. And we know that community is so important, and we'd love to have you join ours. We so value your support and are excited to accompany you on your wellness path. Until next time, be well, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. The content provided in this podcast is intended solely for informational and educational purposes. It's not designed to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. While I'm a doctor, I'm not your doctor. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health, medical conditions, or treatments. Our goal is to provide accurate and up-to-date information. The discussions and views shared on this podcast reflect the opinions of the host and guest, and they may not align with your unique health needs. Decisions related to your health and wellness should be made in consultation with your healthcare team because they understand your specific circumstances. Thanks for joining us on this journey to thrive on plants, and I hope you enjoy the future episodes.